Welcome to our video series on improving your copywriting. In this video, we'll discuss the importance of credibility. What I'll be talking you through in this video is credibility and how the more you establish it with a reader, the more likely you are to make a sale. And this follows on in a way from the previous video. In the previous video, I touched on sampling, and sampling establishes credibility because you're actually showing people what they're going to get. But really, because of the number of offers people see every day, once people actually start believing what you're saying, it makes it so much easier. Believing what you're saying, that the product is going to help them, it becomes so much easier to make the sale. But you have to prove to the reader. Basically, you have to make your offer credible. And the more you do to achieve that, the better your sales are going to be. And there are a number of ways you can do this. Again, I know it seems like we're not talking through the nitty-gritty of copywriting, but as I mentioned, that nitty-gritty of copywriting is covered quite well in a number of other courses, so I'm not going to cover that territory here. What I'm really focusing on is the small changes that can make huge differences in your online and even offline sales presentations. And copy, of course, is a sales presentation in print. So how do you get credibility? Okay, sampling. We've already talked about that. And you can also do coaching events that lead to sales. What I mean by that is, for example, teleseminars, free teleseminars. And they're very common, and all you need to do to take part in a free teleseminar as a listener, usually online, is just to enter your name and email address, and the teleseminar details will be sent to you. These teleseminars are like seminars in the real world, but they're held over the telephone where everyone dials in to listen. Free teleseminars may be 60 or 90 minutes or 2 hours long. They have a lot of very good content provided by the person who's either selling or has created the product. And the last part of the teleseminar leads into a sales presentation for the product itself. So let's say someone is promoting a real live seminar, and let's also say that the fee for that seminar is $5,000, which is not a particularly easy sale to make. So during the teleseminar, let's say there are 3 speakers who are going to be taking part in that live seminar, actually on call in the teleseminar. What they do is, each of them talks for a half hour on their specialized subject and what they're an expert in. Then, let's say that the last half hour actually leads to selling the benefit of the seminar and how to order. Generally, in a teleseminar, because it's a live event, and you have people's attention then and there, typically there's a time-limited offer to get people to respond immediately. For example, if you sign up before midnight today, you get a $500 discount. So really, the task of the teleseminar is to establish credibility in the bulk of the presentation and then lead into the sales presentation. And because so much credibility can be established in teleseminars, and because the listeners begin having what you might say is a relationship or rapport with the person who's doing the presentation, so you could say the people listening start to know and start to like and start to trust the people doing the presentation. It's much more likely that the people listening will take up the offer because they're no longer listening to a sales presentation from strangers. They're getting to know the people. And that's why it's actually more similar to selling to existing customers than to prospects, because customers already trust you and hopefully like what you're doing. And it makes that entire barrier to further sales much lower. So really, with teleseminars, you're also making the barrier to sales much lower because the listeners are getting to know the people and getting to like the people, and there's huge credibility established there if the content is good and of interest to them. Okay, a further example. Of course, you can establish credibility from testimonials. Testimonials from previous customers who have benefited from what you're offering. And there are a number of testimonials here. But they need to be done the right way. For example, I've seen some testimonials that say, "I liked the product, it was very interesting." That is not a good testimonial. It's positive, but it's not going to help sales because it doesn't imply any benefit. You want your testimonials benefit-driven. You want to make it clear to people the kind of benefits that are possible with the product, and it has to be the kinds of benefits that they actually want. And you want all sorts of testimonials, from the sort of top-range testimonials from people who make millions with your information, and you want testimonials where people make $500 a month with the information. That's because people reading them are going to have different wants, different levels of interest. So the wider the range of benefits presented in the testimonials, the more you're going to cover all the different types of readers. But again, put across benefits. Don't just put across, "It's an interesting product, I like the writing style," because I've seen those, and they actually hurt the sales process because they just clutter up the page without contributing anything. They make it, in my opinion, they make it seem that the company is so desperate for testimonials that they'll put anything up. So really, you want very persuasive testimonials. If you're short of testimonials, obviously make sure your product is very high quality, and you can even give some copies of the product away, and in return ask for a promise that you'll get a testimonial from that person. The more information you offer about the person giving the testimonial, the more it can help with the credibility too. Of course, you have to consider their privacy, but here they put the website, the annual revenues, and so on. And you can also use audio testimonials. And there are quite a few services that do this, where the people doing the testimonials can phone up a special number and leave their testimonial as audio. And you can very easily embed that audio into your web page. Or you can even do video testimonials where people look into a webcam and record their testimonials and send that to you. And you can add that to your web page. If you're doing an audio or a video testimonial, there's no harm in putting in a transcript too, because not everyone is going to bother listening to the audio or watching the video. Personally, I often scan pages quite quickly and don't stop to listen. So I would read, but I probably wouldn't press play. So then, if you include a transcript, you cover all the bases and all the different types of readers. Again, this is a side issue, but it's worth noting you have to remember that there are different types of readers for your copy. There are skimmers, and then people who read every single word, and probably quite a few in between. Some people are going to read every single word on your page, and others are going to skim to get the gist of it and then order. And generally, if I order, I just skim to get the gist of it and then order because I already know it's something I want. And I wouldn't spend the time reading every single word. But many people do. So you have to set up your sales presentation, your copy, for the skimmers and for the people who want all the details. But again, if you're giving all the details, make sure it's interesting. That's why formatting the page like this, in different colors, and lots of subheadlines and text that stands out, it makes your page look much more interesting, but it makes it much easier to skim as well, so the skimmers can just jump to the bit that's most relevant to them. I generally suggest that if you're doing a sales presentation, obviously don't depend on the context, and I guess you would need to see what your competition is doing and see what's working for them because different markets are going to be different. So pay attention to the competition in your market, and if the leaders are doing something different consistently, that's generally a good clue that it's working. Often, with information products, which are educational products, the entire presentation is on one page, and you just scroll down. The reason for that is if you broke it up over several pages, each potential link to the next page could mean that's a place where a percentage of your readers don't click through. So with more clicks, you're going to lose more of them, whereas if they scroll, it's a lot easier. I don't see this so much with software. Generally, with software, the sales presentation is broken up over different pages. For example, there's an FAQ page, a free download page, and so on. So you would need to pay attention to your market. And just as a final note related to this, I've seen some sales presentations that are so long and have so much embedded video, my web browser ground to a halt and I couldn't even read the page at all. And I'm probably not the only one who experienced that. So if you do really load up the page with video and audio, and it's a very long page, make sure people can actually view it successfully. So test it on a number of different computers and on different web browsers.